That Sober Guy podcast contains adult content, merciless truth, and emotional nudity. Listener discretion is advised.
Yo, what's up? Thank you for tuning in today. Thanks to Humans for bringing us in. Thanks to you for supporting the show. I'm Shane Raymer. You're listening to That Sober Guy podcast, and we help people stay sober. We're coming to you live from San Diego at the Innovations in Recovery Conference. And we're talking right now with Dr. Louise Stanger from All About Interventions. We're going to discuss marijuana, CBD, teen vaping in the recovery community, a little bit of ethics to go along with all that. Now, Dr. Stanger is a preeminent interventionist and thought leader in behavioral health and addiction treatment industry. She's performed thousands of family interventions in the U.S. and abroad. She gives presentations around the country on various topics related to mental health, addiction, process disorders, and chronic pain as well. So we're going to talk to Dr. Stanger in just a minute, but first, be sure to check us out at thatsoberguy.com. You can connect with us on Instagram at RealThatSoberGuy and on Twitter at Shane Raymer. Now, I mentioned we're coming to you live from San Diego at the Innovations in Recovery, and some people go, what the hell is Innovations in Recovery? It's about everything new in behavioral health, behavioral health care. And we're here to bring you some of the top experts and recovery advocates, help inform you of what's going on, who's who, what we're talking about, all kinds of good topics, as well as have some fun and spread some recovery love. So if you want more information about any of Foundation's events, whether it's Innovations in Recovery or Moments of Change, they do a number of conferences. You can go to foundationsevents.com. And then last, finding the right treatment option for addiction and mental health illness can be tough. That's why we have continued to partner with Foundations Recovery Network. And because of that, Foundations, they stay true to their mission. They hold high ethical standards, and they provide treatment in their nationwide network of residential and outpatient programs. So if you or a loved one needs help, you can go to foundationshelp.com/soberguy, or you can call 833-81-SOBER. That's 833-81-SOBER. You can talk with an admissions coordinator about treatment options. They can answer any questions for you, and you'll be definitely taken care of there. Dr. Louise Stanger, it's great to have you. Thank you for being on time today. I love you so much. I got to give you a hard time about it. You know it.
I know.
No, you're awesome. I mean that with the best of love. Like, it's really good to have you back on the show. We talked to you a while ago, and it's great to have you today. Thank you.
Oh, Shane, I'm so glad that this is a recovery program, because it's always progress, not perfection.
That's right. You are
obviously,
right.
I got the time wrong and the day wrong, but so I feel very grateful to be with you again, and it is so exciting to see That Sober Guy and how this podcast is helping hundreds of thousands of people in the United States. So my kudos to you, and thanks for your willingness to let an elder adult be have a little lapse.
Oh, you're so awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's crazy just to watch the podcast grow, and just meet a lot of great people, and really try to just have some fun in the process too. So I appreciate that. Now, I get your emails.
Yes.
They're awesome. You got a lot of great content, a lot of good articles on different stuff. I picked two of them out today that I wanted to talk about, and one of them revolves ethics in the marijuana industry, and the other one is teen vaping. So I want to touch on both of those. But first, before we do that, what have you been up to? What's going on with you? Anything new? Tell us a little bit about yourself for someone out there listening who might not know who you are, what you do, what you're about.
Oh, for someone who doesn't know who I am or anything, I'm a licensed clinician. I've been licensed since 1973, a former university professor, and my passion has always been helping families move their loved ones to change. In addition, I'm pretty much of a prolific writer. This year I was asked by a textbook house, and now USC has adopted my textbook. So I have the first textbook in the country written on interventions, and it's called The Definitive Guide to Addiction Intervention Collective Strategies. I'm pretty honored that it's being put into graduate schools across the country.
That's huge.
It's
pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a gift. I love to write, so you can find me on Thrive Global. I think I just hit finally the front cover with Snowplow Parents.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, but really, I I'm just me, so I don't have a big team, but when you do call me, I do pick up my own phone, and I treat you as if you were my family member, because I know how your heart is hurting. So thank you for asking me what I've been up to.
What does writing look like for you? Like just the process for that. I'm just kind of curious as a creative person, and I know there's a lot of creative people in recovery. Do you map out time, whether it's a book or article? Does it just free flow? Like how does that work for you?
Sometimes they really free flow. And as crazy as it sounds, I wrote my dissertation on a legal notebook pad. And when I really am inspired, and it doesn't matter, it's usually early morning, I often pick up my telephone and write on notes.
Really?
Which is wild, because somehow or other that small space allows me to dream and to create. It really depends. Sometimes I'm just really moved by the news. I'm moved by subject matter. I'm moved by some client, or I'm asked to write an article about something, as I was with the textbook. So it depends. But in the early morning, say 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, that's when my creative juices flow. Again, about this time of day, I might be able to start again, but it depends. I'm also I also have a third book in the works, which is...
Congrats.
Well, it's totally different, and it's 90 Days to a Kick-Ass Life.
I like it. I dig that.
Yeah.
You get some coffee going in the morning, too? You get a little bit of...
I get my coffee, and I get a hug from 2 golden doodles, Teddy and Coco, and a high five from my husband, who knows, you can't bother because she's not going to talk to you right now. She's in the midst. But I also have clients early in the morning, because I have a lot of East Coast clients. So I might be on the phone at 7 in the morning. So somehow or other, that's sacred time to me. I do wake up and do a third step prayer and make sure that I meditate, and I do some meditation before I start the day. And I think that's really important for self-care for people like us in our profession.
Absolutely, yeah. You're dealing with a lot of stuff throughout the day.
Yeah, a lot of
so you
stuff.
got to make sure that you're having a healthy outlet to let some of that stuff go too. So let's jump into this first one that this article that you wrote. It's called "Looks Like Apple, Smells Like Pot: Ethics in the Marijuana Industry," and I'll make sure the links are in here in the show notes for those of you out there listening. They're great articles and they're interesting, so if you want to check them out, you can go in the show notes and do that. I have some notes here about it, but tell us a little bit from your perspective about that article, what it's about.
So I lived in West Hollywood, and for those of you that know anything about the state of California, West Hollywood is the first place in the state of California, at least in Los Angeles, that had legalized pot stores, and this is $1 billion business that is doing a marketing campaign, the likes of which I've never seen. If you know anything about MedMen, their stores are designed to look like Apple. They have 2 people standing out there with lanyards on and little red shirts, reading you in, and the way the store is actually set up, it looks like an Apple store. Their ads are, Shane, you could be in an ad. It would be radio producer. I could be professor, doctor, nurse. Their ads are designed that everybody who's anybody needs their product. And really, I find that unethical. There is a lot of research, and I wrote, for example, I have another great article, Folks Get High on La Cienega Boulevard, 11 Things You Need to Know About Marijuana. There's a lot of research out there which demonstrates, evidence-based, that it is harmful. And the fact that you're marketing it as if it is applesauce or a Mac, I find just untenable. But that is what's happening with an unregulated industry. And the other thing is that they're doing all types of different types of materials. Like, for example, Jelly Bellies are now producing Jelly Bellies that look just like Jelly Bellies, but they're filled with marijuana. What does that do for our children? Chocolate chip cookies, coconut-infused water. So what we're doing is, the marijuana industry is doing exactly what the alcohol industry did in terms of target marketing, but it's not just really target marketing to you and I who might be able to make a decision. It's targeted marketing to youth our children because they want to see it. And it's saying this is really good for everyone. The only problem is it's an unregulated industry. When they passed it, there is no regulation for the amount of actually THC content in any product. The fact that you say it's organic, really? It's really organic. And so I think that in 20 years from now, I may not be here because I'm 72. But your children will be.
Yeah.
And what type of normative behavior and what type of normative measures are we really sending to people?
Yeah.
So MedMan is one of many. If you take a look around the department store, which I'm probably going to write about, Barney's, high-end. I like high-end stuff. I work with very wealthy people. They have just opened a counter in Los Angeles and New York with all the paraphernalia. And so once again, this is subliminal marketing for the same person that's going to buy a Louboutin or Hermes scarf or a Chloe dress is now going to buy their marijuana paraphernalia.
So is it marketing like that just as they would with alcohol then? Because that was what I was going to ask you is the benefit or the purpose here just as some sort of recreational use to get high, basically? Do they market it from a benefit perspective of medicinal purposes or anything? Or is this
this is more for you want to be in the in crowd. This is what the in crowd is doing. We do know that, for example, in Nevada, the alcohol industry owns the marketing of the marijuana industry. They're the only state that does that. We also know that from Pacific Institute of Research and Evaluation, the governor, they did the research on the governor's drug driving report. We also know that it's evidence. It's not me making it up. It's not me. That there's evidence that there are more accidents and more drug driving deaths now in states that have legalized marijuana.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is, or what is behind that? Just people are. Do you think it's a combination of drinking? I remember I drank one time and ate a brownie at one point. Oh, man, I was so wrecked. I was so messed up. I don't know if that is relatable to
Well, it's hard to say
like that,
what else are you doing besides the marijuana? Yeah. You know, I can't really say that that's a gateway drug. It's a drug I'm trying to sell. Recently, I did an intervention. The young girl, very bright, was doing spending $1,200. Her parents were spending $1,200 a month in 3 weeks on her marijuana because they thought that might be good for the trauma she had. Really? I mean, that's not helpful. So there's a lot of misconception out there. And what else are you doing? You might be on an antidepressant. You might be chasing with alcohol. You know, it's very, very hard to say. But, you know, it's one, and now it's legalized. So legalized means okay. So it's really hard. I, for one, am concerned. I mean, the argument for legalization was we could do actual research. Well, there aren't that many places that they're really doing controlled studies yet. UCLA has one. But what you're saying is, hey, I'm good. Come get me. Buy me. And by the way, if you're 72 or you're 18, this is a great drug for you.
Yeah. Well, I think to that point, too, no matter what drug or what substance we're talking about, if we're using it in order to mask something or to cover up or to use it as a tool to not deal with something, that's where the issue comes in to me. Because I think you can argue and you can debate the marijuana is legal all day long, never ending until you're blue in the face. I think there's two sides to it. I'm not an expert in it. I'm not going to even try to go there. But at the same time, in the end, what are you using to deal with some of the life issues that people are having, and especially with the youth? They're influential, very, very influential people. And we talk about peer pressure. I'm sure you deal a lot with that too, right? Peer pressure in schools.
That's right.
And
well,
the cool kid and trying to fit in.
Well, the cool kid wants to fit in. And right now, to be cool, vaping is so cool.
That was another article you wrote.
I know, but the reason I'm mentioning vaping is you can be vaping marijuana. It's colorless and odorless, and it can be in your pretty pink or purple Juul, and nobody's going to know. And recently I had an opportunity to speak with a high school here, a private school here in this area, and 85% of all their really super bright, super wealthy kids are vaping. And the mom said, well, you know, that's kind of good. They may not be having sex. And I went, really? Okay. So vaping means you don't have sex. And he said, well, they're not doing cigarettes. But they don't know what's in them.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, okay, you don't know what's in the vape. And so I think there's a close connection between vaping. Somehow or other, if you're beginning to get into, vaping as being cool, like a cigarette was cool in my age,
sure,
versus vaping and what is inside the vape, and what does this mean to be part of the in crowd, and where does this take you down the line?
So let's kind of do this then. What if, and I'm sure you deal with this, probably on the daily, parents who are having to deal with their teenagers, their youth, whether it's vaping, marijuana, whatever. How do you address that? What advice do you give to parents to kind of help take a look at that? And I know every situation is different, but from a general perspective.
Well, from a general perspective, first of all, no one calls me unless their heart is hurting. They just don't call, hi, Dr. Stanger, I need a good time. So for some reason, their kid has gotten into some sort of problem at school, or they're hiding, or there's been some type of, I hate the word trauma because it's so overused, but maybe they were in a party, they ended up doing something they didn't want to do, or something happened to them, but their heart is hurting, or maybe they're lost inside the internet. And they're gaming. And
that's a big one.
That's a big one. I just had a phone call from that yesterday, and they're vaping. And then I asked them, so how do you talk about that with them? What do you ask? Well, I don't really talk about anything. And I go, well, how do they get, the big question is, how are they paying for this?
Oh, wow, yeah.
I mean, do they have a job? Because the majority of people that are calling me, they're the ones that are not only paying for their cell phones, they're also paying for they say, well, I got my son or daughter a medical marijuana card. I let them vape because, honestly, if I don't let them vape, they're going to do something else. I go, really? And so one thing is having that sort of open conversation with parents and having them take a look at in what degree are they funding their loved one? How are they relating it? And then the second thing is, so what type of parent groups are there? Are there parent groups at your high school, well, be it a public or private high school? Do you call up and even ask, if Sally says she's going to Mary's house, are they really going there? Or are they going somewhere else? I mean, where I live, Coachella was this past weekend. There were more teenage girls there, and their parents said, well, we had to let them go. And I go, really? It was $800 a pop. That is not inexpensive. And so to what degree are you willing not to be their friend? Because most parents talk about, well, I really, a parent wants every parent wants their kid to say, I love you. And so when you do something that might be a boundary, or I call boundaries compassionate directness, you're going to set off some other trajectory. So to what degree can you take responsibility, or can you take a look at, hey, is this like when I was a kid? Coachella is not Woodstock, okay? And the marijuana in Woodstock is not the marijuana today. And big the vaping, difference. There's a big difference. And so, what degree do you want to be a friend, or do you want to be a parent? I just had a great article on Thrive about, are you a snowplow? And I write about helicopters, snowplows, saran wrap, and other types of parenting. Because what kind of parent do you want to be, and how can we help you become that parent you're meant to be?
So for someone like my wife Jess and I, our kids are still young. They're 4 and Lucy will be 9. Do you start talking to them about this kind of stuff at a certain age? Or, I mean, one of the things that we've tried to really, and we're very selective, obviously, of what we're talking to them about, but we know that with social media, with school coming up, Lucy's going into 4th grade this next year. I know I'm going to blink my eyes, she's going to be in middle school, and before you know it, she's going to be affected by a lot of this stuff too. So we want to try our best to be open and be able to talk to her about stuff. She's going to find out eventually. So we'd rather it be from us, than from someone at school when we don't know about. How do you kind of, when your kids are young, is there a certain strategy or what advice would you give for a parent out there who has got younger kids?
Well, I think you've got to be open and honest.
Yeah.
So to start with that, and at 4-year-old, they might say, "Hey, that guy, what is he smoking?"
He does that all the time, and we've caught him pretending too.
Yeah, and because we had, when I was a kid, we had those cool candy cigarettes that you could blow out. Yeah, the ice cream man. And I wanted them because my mother had a cigarette butt that hung out the side of her mouth like Loretta Young. So I wanted that. So you can't just say, "Oh, that's really bad." You got to talk about, "Hey, that's a substance, and we've decided that isn't a good, healthy one for us.
Yeah.
But let's talk about it." Or even ask, like, "What questions do you have?" Because a 4-year-old's conception is different than an 8-year-old.
Sure.
I have young grandchildren at this point, and the 11-year-old invariably, or started when he was 9. So, Weezy, that's what he calls me, Grandma Weed. I know what you do for a living. Can you tell me about those people that you were? I said, "Gee, they look just like you, Gavin." "Well, I saw a drug deal at my campus,
Really?
Yeah, so he asks all these beautiful questions because he knows what I do, and he says, "Have you ever done this? And have you ever done that?" He's just really an inquisitive mind, so somehow or other he feels comfortable in that. But truthfully, he sees things and he hears things and he sees people smoking on the sidewalk or vaping on the sidewalk where he goes to school. So being open and willing not to send the fear of God into everyone, because and I know that people will experiment. And I always like that trajectory that I do with families. It goes from non-use to abuse. In between, there's a whole bunch of stuff. But don't be afraid to ask them. Talking to a 4-year-old, for example, about death is different than talking to a 9-year-old. With a 4-year-old, if they see that their dog died, the way you do it is you take a piece of hair, or their hair, and you pull it out and says, "Ouch." That's no more. That's what they can know cognitively. It's true.
Yeah.
And so with a 4-year-old, what is it? Or, "Gee, Auntie Sally smokes. How come you don't?"
Well, that's some of the questions that we've had that exact question. Well, so and so smokes. Do you smoke that? And we've caught him, not lately, but he would take pencils and we'd catch him in his room hiding out, acting like the pencil was a cigarette. And he knows they're bad though too.
Yeah,
because
but you can say, "Hey, why do you want to do that?
Yeah.
What makes that special for you?"
Yeah.
And your first fear is, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
It's got the, because we know the ABCs of addiction is age of first, the DNA. So we know that 1 out of every 3 families has DNA, which means that they could be at risk for alcohol or other drug problem. So that's where we get hypervigilant as parents. We don't want that same trajectory for our loved one, but the same thing is he may, maybe that needs to be redirected into, if you like to do that, let's see what other thing you can do that's a little bit obsessive. Let's find a different activity. Something
right?
positive. Can we redirect you to soccer or, pie eating contest or something or other? I don't know, but something to do with your mouth.
What would be the difference to our 9-year-old? Well, almost 9. She'll be 9 pretty quick.
Your 9-year-old, well, in my experience, 5-year-olds and 9-year-olds know an awful lot. They know when someone's heart is hurting. They know from intervention work, they know that mommy or daddy have a problem. And so I think you need to be pretty direct. I think the best person that writes about this is Jerry Moe, because he writes a lot on children's books from the Betty Ford. But, that you talk openly about, what is substance misuse? What is addiction? And, but in a way that they can understand that some people just have problems in living. And some of the problems in living they have are with mind-altering substances. Or things that change you. And you can see, don't you get so excited when you play basketball or you do that? That's how your endorphins change. So there's ways to dummy it down and not make it into an hour-and-a-half discussion. But I'll answer their question and let them have that question. Hey, my friends are doing it. If 9-year-old, you're going to find someone in that school who has already drinking alcohol out of their parents' cabinet, already doing something, or may have a parent or a sister or older brother that has a problem, and they have nowhere to talk. And so those people are they are very vulnerable, and they need to be able to do it. Ironically enough, Australia is one of the few places where there's good blogs on siblings.
Oh, really?
And addiction, yeah. I have that. I wrote an article. I write so many articles because I'm just so interested in every subject, but on your siblings. And I quoted a lot of work from Australia because we don't do much work in the U.S. with siblings or young children.
With regard to addiction also, right?
With regard to addiction.
Okay, I might have to have you direct me on
I'll
maybe
be happy
a couple of those, right? Because I'd like to check them out and see it. I'm sure my wife would like to look at them too. Because it's interesting, especially when you're in it, and and even the work that I do too. Both the kids know, and Lucy knows a little more because she's a little bit older, but they know that we work with people who struggle with addiction. And I don't know that they know the full depth of it, but they know, they get it.
But you would not, it's the crazy part of this is, Shane, if you said you wouldn't hesitate to explain to your child, I work with people that have diabetes. Exactly. I work with people that have heart disease. It is, you work with people who experience a substance use disorder, and not call them an addict or an alcoholic. That's a self-definition. But there's no stigma if you do it that way, because what's the difference? What's the most resistant disease to treatment in the country?
Are you asking me a question?
Yeah, I am.
The most resistant? Say it one more time.
What is the most resistant disease for treatment? More resistant, like I just can't seem to get it together to do it.
Oh, but I'd say alcohol.
No, it's diabetes. That's
really?
That's even where the birth of motivational interviewing came from, with diabetics, with Miller and Molnick. That's where the first and original research came. A diabetic is more, you think it's hard to work with people who experience substance use disorders and their families? Try getting a diabetic to do their insulin there. So, but also the idea is if you say someone experiences a disease, they're responsible for their care and maintenance, but there's so much more than that. You're so much more than whatever your disease is. And but going back to, for little ones, it's a disease, and it's one of the number one health diseases in the country. And so I'm proud to work with people who are trying to get help for this. And get rid of that stigma.
The stigma, that's the big thing. Even on, I don't have where is it? Now I'm looking this up, because we did s'mores last night on the beach, right? For the welcome reception. And the marshmallows, they said the marshmallows had a stamp on them. Did you come last night or not?
Yeah, but I didn't see the stamp. I was cold.
They said roasting away the stigma.
That's great.
Hashtag, Innovations in Recovery 2019. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. There's an article I wrote earlier on Huffington. It's called Words, Words, Words. And the words we use really help either facilitate that stigma or take them away.
Yeah, that's good.
So, but, vaping scares me. I'm not going to say it doesn't, because I see that as another $1 billion business. Marijuana, I think, like whoever decided, it's a $1 billion business, and the research is way out. Do I think it's going to have the same trajectory as alcohol? No one knows really if it's going to cause any throat cancer. No, you don't know that. And you don't know the mental health effects of it if you already have someone who has, a history of anxiety or depression. And you don't know because you're dealing with young brains, and a brain isn't developed till you're 25 years old. So if you start smoking at 16, 15, your brain is not going to be developed at 25.
Dr. Stanger, I'm 37 and I'm not sure my brain is fully developed yet.
Well, I ain't like I got a few years on you, and I'm still trying.
All right.
So I believe we can always transform.
Good stuff. Well, anything else you want to add? I appreciate you coming and stopping in today. Thank you so much. I was looking forward to chatting with you, when we talked before.
If there's any other quote that you wanted me to comment on or anything.
You kind of went, we kind of went into that organically, but the one of them said for parents of a teen son or daughter, one of the first things you can do is have an open and honest conversation with them. You're also still in charge at home, and it's your responsibility to set healthy boundaries. I thought that was a good
it's absolutely correct. You're in charge of your family. That means that I'm old-fashioned. I believe you should have family dinners. You shouldn't all be looking at your cell phones. There should be, when you walk through the door, because everybody's connected to their devices and we don't teach young people how to speak anymore, you have a basket. Leave your device there. Limit screen time. For your 4-year-old, please limit screen time. Don't give them an iPad. Let them learn without that. Even though you're busy working, make sure there's a dinner together. There's some family activity. Play that old-fashioned game. And guess what? You're the one who's paying for their deal. And you have to not want to be their best friend. You have to want to be their parent. And the other thing is, for parents, if there is a two-family parent, you have to be on the same page, because little Johnny's going to know to go to your mom and get his own way. But if you both can say, "Hey, stop! I'm going to talk to Mom about this, or I'm going to talk to John about this. We'll get back to you." Hit pause, stop, reflect, and then think about, is this really I'm exhausted? And also keep track of your wallet. Because sometimes things are missing from your wallet and you don't know they're missing. You know what I mean? But be responsible. Talk to other parents. When you're in kindergarten, you know all the parents. You're so excited. Okay? By the time you hit junior high, you might know a few if you happen to play sports. By the time you hit high school, oh my God. You're letting them fly. But that doesn't mean you stop that communication. There has to be parent groups. You have to bond together, and you have to decide that health is more important than giving in.
Well, I don't know that this thought is healthy, but I can't tell you how many times I've envisioned taking both iPads and taking them out to the garage and taking my carpenter's hammer and smashing them.
Well, because I think you guys have to come to an agreement, and I just helped another family with that. I have a lot of stuff on screen time. You've got to decide that you can end the screen time. And even though it's your kid is going to be
boundaries, right?
The boundaries. This is, and I call boundary compassionate directness. So you have to decide that you can live with the screaming and everything. You're actually detoxing someone's brain off of the screen, because they get lost in the screen. And it's so really your responsibility, because anybody who grew up with an addictive personality, and the screen, the slot machine, you know what a slot machine does in Vegas. It just ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Well, our phones do, and our phones kick in our dopamine every time they go message, message, message. So we have these developing brains, 3 and 4, and you see them in the restaurants. They're really good because they're glued. But you have to be willing to take that risk as parents and say, no more screen time. There's coloring books, there's Legos, there's things they can learn to do. And will they scream? Yes. Give me my pad, give me my pad. But you have to do that.
And I want to say too, just for the record too, my wife does an amazing job of trying to. No, and I know too, but this is me in my own head and stuff too, because it is important to us, and we've had this conversation, Jess and I, a bunch of times, and we try to balance that the best we can. I think we do an okay job, and probably better than okay. At trying to set those boundaries, but it is hard sometimes. And when we do take it away, they do throw the fit sometimes. And I see a difference when, let's say, if my daughter's been on the iPad for an hour, when it's gone, I can see, sometimes that's when some of these breakdowns happen. And even if she gives it up in a voluntarily manner, she's not really upset. The behavior, I'm noticing these patterns, and so I want to just get rid of them altogether.
So there's something called time boxing, where if you have a special, it's used in work, where you have something special you have to do, you have a certain amount of time, and you're going to have to, if you can't wean all together and go cold turkey, which is really somewhat what I recommend, you time box. You can have this for an hour a day.
Okay.
And that's it. And then you time it. You have a timer. and you let the child know, 5 minutes before or 10 minutes before. That's all. In 10 minutes, this is done.
Yeah.
But you're time boxing the event, and you both have to be very consistent in it, because with parenting, it's where we get inconsistent that we get all the problems.
Yeah, that's true. Not being on the same page.
Not being on the same page. So you guys have to be absolutely together. Yeah. But thank you. That's such a great question.
Yeah, well, I don't know how the hell this turned into a Shane and Jess episode, but hey, I'm loving it. I appreciate it. Well, hopefully it speaks to some other families out there and some other folks out there.
But I think that what I appreciate is your vulnerability and your honesty, because the questions you're asking me are the questions parents ask.
Good.
And
that's
you
good.
are
So we're not alone, at least, in that. That's another good thing.
No, you're not alone at all. And you're being a voice for parents, and so refreshing that you can say, hey, what do I do with my child who's vaping? What do I do about this marijuana? What do I do about those little ones in screen time? Yeah. You are speaking what all parents are asking, but sometimes they're afraid to ask in a public venue. So I want to applaud you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your insight. And I know you're, constantly dealing with this stuff and working through it and reading and writing, and really appreciate all the work you're doing. I'm looking forward to more emails, too. Keep sending those, please. I love them.
Yeah, well, we have another one coming out.
Yeah. Where can folks get the emails, by the way, if they want to
all they have to do is go to my website, All About Interventions, or they can Google my name, Louise Stanger. There's a place to sign up for them, and I'm happy to have them. Also on my website, I have a history of blogs. I think it goes on for pages. It might be a little bit too long in this media world, but I have a lot of different topics I write on, from narcissism to high wealth to teens to screen time.
That's awesome. Good stuff. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah. And folks, be sure to check us out at thatsoberguy.com. You can connect with us on Instagram at real.soberguy and on Twitter at Shane Raymer. Love you guys. Thank you for tuning in today from Innovations in Recovery. And you guys have a good one. Thank you. Peace, love, and respect. Keep your blood clean. I've been trying to keep my head on straight. I've been trying to keep my head on straight. You still say that I don't know anything about you. Oh, I don't know anything about you, but I know what you do in the back room. And you still say that I don't know anything about you. Oh, I don't know anything about you, but I know what you do in the back room.